Thank you for joining the ACA Small Business Bootcamp for this Tuesday, November 16th. We're glad to have everybody with us. I'm Robert Theobald, Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services. And as we like to do, if you haven't been with us before, we like to start these boot camps by thanking all of our community partners. We could not do these boot camp sessions without them, their time, and their expertise. The small business boot camps are designed to help support small businesses return from the COVID crisis stronger than ever. It is a statewide initiative supported by our community partners. And not only is it a Tuesday and Thursday webinar, it is also a resource collective and a content library. So let's dive a little bit deeper into those two pieces. So the Resource Collective is a website we set up with additional tools and guides brought to us by our network of community partners. They provide, that webpage provides information on guidance on how your business can return stronger, business essentials and some marketing strategies. And so feel free, that there's no cost to go on there and take a look at it and leverage those materials that our community partners have brought to assist businesses. The Small Business Content Library is a great thing to take a look at. You can find it right now on the bottom of our Small Business Bootcamp page under Archive. And we record all of our webinars, with the exception of just a handful that had some licensing challenges with, Facebook and Google that have their own websites to support that learning. But we have over 180 recorded webinars by expert presenters. And with those webinars, you can go back and review them at any time. We cover all different topics that a small business may face. And it is just a tool and resource available to you at no cost, again, on the Bootcamp website. Feel free, you can share the links to those with other people that you may know that may need that information. But it is a great piece that came from recording all of them as we built out this massive content library. Another couple of places that have great information for individuals for COVID-19, just information and general resources, is arizonatogether.org. And then the Arizona Commerce Authority set up the COVID-19 Business Resources webpage at azcommerce.com/COVID-19. And there you can find, again, business resources, financial information, and other things related to all size businesses in Arizona. The ACA also has a number of different programs to help support small businesses. We have our Small Business Services, our Workforce Division, and our Arizona MEP, our Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Along with these programs, we have the ACA Small Business Checklist, and this is for entrepreneurs that are looking to start or scale their business or grow it into new product lines. And it's an interactive online tool that helps entrepreneurs understand the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance needs at the local, state, and federal level. It also contains a lot of other great information on things like starting a business, operating your business, and growing your business. So with that, we want to jump into some little small business updates and zip through these real quick. We're going to post some articles or some links in the chat about each of these. But Small Business Saturday, for small businesses out there, it's a day in which we focus on supporting small businesses. It's nestled between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And we're going to list an article that you can read and learn how you can take advantage of the marketing efforts to go about with Small Business Saturday. Also, the governor announced some new grants. We don't have the details on how these are going to be working yet, but it's good to know about some of these upcoming grants that will be available. And then we'll list some information on Maricopa County Small Business Resilience Program. That's a pretty broad ranging program. There's a grant aspect, there's an extremely low interest loan aspect, and then there's technical assistance as part of it as well. And then just a reminder, the employee retention credit, it is available out there. With the passage of the new infrastructure bill, there are some changes that impact the employee retention credit. So you'll definitely want to get with your accountant. It is a complicated program, but it is a program where there can be some significant funds that your business may qualify for. So with that, we want to look at our upcoming sessions. So this Thursday, we have money decisions for a return stronger holiday season. We've got Karen Russo on that one. She's been with us before, does an amazing job. So please join us. And then for the week of Thanksgiving, we are not doing any boot camp sessions. We want everybody to have a great Thanksgiving week and enjoy your time with family. Or depending on your business, driving some sales that week as well. And then after Thanksgiving on Tuesday the 30th, we have leveraging the power of AI in entrepreneurship. This is going to be a really exciting one. We've had this presenter on before. It's Rebecca Clyde of Botco AI. It's a local startup that is receiving all kinds of accolades and awards. And not only is she going to talk about leveraging AI, but also about how she manages her time with her husband having a business, she has a business, and they have a family. And they make it and get things done. So we're going to be excited to have that one. And then on Thursday, December 2nd, the top 10 digital marketing trends. We have Giselle Aguiar from AZ Social Media Wiz back with us to talk about that as we lead into December, where a lot of you can take advantage of social media for marketing your business. So with that, we wanted to throw a poll up on the screen real quick for everyone. We are looking at our 2022 sessions. So what day and time of the following ones on there would work best for you in 2022 for bootcamp sessions? Excellent. We appreciate your feedback on this. We'll leave it up for they just wrapped it up, but thank you for your feedback. It's helpful. We're looking at making some minor changes to the program in 2022 with continuing webinars and adding some workshops as well. And so we're looking at your feedback is very helpful on this as we look to make this program even better for you the coming year. So with that, we're going to go ahead and turn the time over today to our speaker, Joe Corella. He's a professor of global strategy and assistant dean for executive education at the Eller College of Management, the University of Arizona. Joe's been with us before. He does a fantastic job on the presentations, and we're looking forward to this one today. So Joe, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen and let you get started. Joe's got a unique way he's sharing his screen, his presentation today, and he just taught us how to do it. So I'm gonna try to do it on Thursday's boot camp.
There you go.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Robert. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be still working with the Arizona Commerce Authority. It's a pleasure as a land-grant university to have the opportunity to share insights and support our community. It's something that we do with real pleasure. And so if beyond this presentation, you ever feel that you want to have a conversation with me, feel free to reach out. The ACA team does a fantastic job of sharing insights, of connecting me with people that want to talk more. You'll see that the slide deck that you're going to be getting will have also my contact details, so feel free to reach out. The topic that I want to address with you today is really geared towards thinking through what it means to navigate all this turbulence that we have and to think about what 2022 will look like. The end of the year, it's always a great time to kind of wrap up our year as far as our financials are concerned, but also to reflect on what we've accomplished and what we want to accomplish in the new year. So I want you to think through what it means managing teams in this environment that feels very different. And so what we will cover today is talk a little bit about VUCA. Some of you may be familiar with the term. I'm going to be using it today to explain the environment that we're in. I'll talk about some of our research and what that's telling us about the workplace and how things are changing. I'm sure that many of you are experiencing challenges, but maybe opportunities in some case when it comes to the workforce. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. And finally, I want to shift gears and say, okay, so if there is all this turbulence, can we do anything? And I think that we can. So I'm going to be sharing what are some good steps that you could take. So let's get started. In the chat, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like you to tell me how turbulence is affecting you and your business. And it can be something that's deeply personal, like I'm not sleeping as much at night. I'm always thinking about work. Or it could be the fact that it's hard to recruit new people. It's a theme that we hear a lot from lots of companies. So feel free to share your thoughts on ways in which your business is impacted by the turbulence. There's some good stuff that comes out of turbulence as well. So, for example, when I think about the work that I do in executive education at the university, we have had the opportunity to do a lot more work during this time because companies are looking for guidance and they want training. And so a lot more than maybe we did before the COVID pandemic started. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. And so you can use the chat. Feel free to add your thoughts. But also, if you want to just make your voice heard, feel free to just unmute yourself and tell us what you were thinking. And Faith and Robert, if you want to join in the chat as well, feel free to do so with your thoughts. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. Faith is mentioning focus. Focus is a big issue during times of turbulence, in the sense that too often it's hard to kind of keep tabs on what to do during the turbulence. And Nick and Robert is also sharing the same perspective with lots of distractions. It's hard to keep focus. Fabiola is saying lack of sleep. I agree with you, Fabiola. There's a lot going on, and our brain, if we look at how our brain works, our brain has to manage all of these different components that are not like business as usual. Our brain, you'll hear me say this quite a bit, is fundamentally a very efficient organ, but it's also quite lazy in that it likes predictability. It likes to be doing things again and again in the same kind of way. And so when we have turbulence, we don't get that. What we get is, in fact, a lot of variety, a lot of things that are different, and our brain really struggles with that. It struggles to make sense of all of this new information that's that's coming at us. It struggles because the environment around us changes. And one way to really kind of make sense of it is through this concept of VUCA. VUCA means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, which I think really well describes the environment that we're in today. The acronym was created by the US Army War College back in the 1980s to help describe what they thought was going to happen with the collapse of the Soviet Union and what sorts of new reality would emerge. And presciently so, the US Army War College said, we think that 4 things are going to happen. Volatility, in the sense that things are not going to be as stable as before, and there's going to be a lot of fluctuation. Uncertainty, in that if there is volatility, I am really not sure how things will pan out. So is it going to be good for me? Is it going to be bad for me? Not really sure. There's going to be more complexity. One of the things that we had during the Cold War was essentially duality, in the sense that we had either countries that were aligned to the United States or countries that were aligned to the Soviet Union. And so it was pretty straightforward which side of the fence you were on. If we fast forward to today, things are not like they used to be. There is a lot more complexity. There's lots more variety. There's many different perspectives that are emerging, and they're all competing for being the perspective that we follow and that we support. All of this ultimately translates in ambiguity. In ambiguity because we're not really sure how to respond to situations that are uncertain and complex at the same time. And it often leaves us wondering what the best option is. So if you're feeling this way, first of all, know that you're not alone. We're all in the same boat. And if we think about how the environment was pre-COVID and post-COVID, there are a number of things that that I think we've seen evolve. For starters, in a post-COVID world, we have to worry a lot more about workforce. You've heard many business commentators and academics talk about this concept of the Great Resignation. I'm sure you're all experiencing the challenge of recruiting employees. We're currently, for example, recruiting for a position, and it's been very hard to find talent. We're not alone, we're conscious of that. But also the expectation that the workforce has of how they're going to engage with the workplace is very different. We're seeing issues around supply chain. The issues pre-COVID in our supply chain were all about how do we get goods from emerging markets to mature markets, and how do we make sure that we get what we need in the space of 24 hours. I think that our supply chain issues today are very much different. They're much more about the availability of resources, the fact that there isn't enough workforce to support supply chain at the level that we're at. And shifting from the old world to this new world, this new normal that we live in, prices and inflation are definitely a consideration, and there is certainly a concern on everyone's part of how much of those prices am I going to be worrying about and incorporating into the cost of doing business versus what I need to absorb myself, and I will not be able to pass on to the consumers. Ultimately, all of these considerations are making our work environment a lot more complicated. And from my vantage point, one of the things that it's really critical is not just worrying about how we recruit new employees, but also how do we manage the employees that we have. And from a certain perspective, how do we manage ourselves? How do we stay focused? So here are some key lessons that have emerged from our research. The external environment can force us to pivot when we least expect it. Whether we like it or not, there are these rapid changes that are taking place, whether it's inflation, whether it's supply chain, whether it's our workforce, that can force us to have to make some changes when we least expect it. I think we've all been through the pandemic long enough to know that we've all had to change in some ways, and that we've all had to shift the way in which we think. Let's just say that what was a temporary event, it's going to be with us for a lot longer. And so we better get used to this, this concept of pivoting and being ready to change. As these conditions change, of course, we must know how to adapt. And it's not just us as individuals, but us as teams and the workforce that works with us. So as our workplace is changing, both in terms of expectations that employees have of our workplace, but also the behaviors that are taking place at work. People expect to, for example, to spend more time at home. Because their family situations may have changed over time. Or they may expect to come to work in ways that are more conducive to this new environment in which many people are working remotely. So all of those are things that are changing. And It is our job, it is our duty to help our team members see our vision and execute accordingly. So if we combine those two things, conditions are changing, we need to adapt. We need to essentially know how to shift and how to tackle this new normal. Then we need to help others see what is our vision and help them see how we think we should be executing. So I have another question for you. And I'd like to ask you, in this kind of crazy environment, how do you keep your team engaged? And if you don't have a team, if you're by yourself, or if you report into someone, how do you keep yourself engaged, or how do you see your boss engaging the organization itself? So again, if you don't mind sharing your answers in the chat, I would very much appreciate it. And Jamie, I'm sorry I missed your earlier point, but I can see how that is a challenge that many organizations like yours seem to have, the issue of transitioning from brick and mortar to an all virtual team setting, while you're trying to keep the business stable during the pandemic. In academia, we call that ambidextrous leadership, in the sense that you need to be good at both. You need to be good at maintaining the business as is, and also helping to grow the business of the future. Those are two things that you need to reconcile and do at any one time. And thank you, Brigitte, for your comments there. Team meetings, communication is the key. I couldn't agree with you more. If you don't connect, if you don't explain how you're thinking, what your business should be like, how you're, to Jamie's earlier point, how you manage both the today and the tomorrow and help your employees see how to do both, that's going to be the challenge, because inevitably you will either tilt to one side, which is I want to build the business of the future and I'm forgetting to build my clients, or I'm not staying engaged with making sure that there is enough revenue coming in. Or you do the opposite. You focus so much on the present that others will come into your business and shift to a different model of delivering the same products that you deliver, and find yourself aced out by clients that like the new model better. So thinking about both is where it's at, and why it's important to communicate effectively with our team, which is the reason why I want to share with you the model that I have developed, and that we use in our training programs when we talk to both business owners as well as team leaders, as well as those that work in teams and that want to understand how best to contribute. And it's a process that is made of 5 steps. I'm going to start with the first 3 because the first 3 are sort of more aligned, and I want you to think it through a little bit more. We're going to stop for a second and get your questions, and then we will move on to step 4 and step 5. Too often, I see teams starting the conversations on how we're going to execute, how we're going to work together, how we're going to deliver on the customer promise, by essentially going into the who does what, when, why, and essentially put together a project plan. Project plans are great, don't get me wrong. They are an essential part of how we do business. But if we want to be really impactful, if we want to make sure that our teams know how to manage the turbulence, know how to think through what to do when things get complicated, I think we need to spend a little bit of more time on step 1, 2, and 3. So let's walk through what those steps are. Step 1, why are we here? It may seem like a bit of a simple question, and why do we even bother about that? I mean, I'm here because I have a shop and people come to my store, and I have a business that I've built over the past 40 years. Of course, I'm here. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think that when we are at times of transition, it is important to remind ourselves of the greater purpose as to why we do what we do. People find motivation and find their own purpose by being clear how what we do affects others, by being clear as to what we do, how what we do contributes to the community. There are plenty of reasons as to why businesses exist. And getting to the core of what that means is a critical first component to any successful business. Why are you here? Are you here to make the life of your fellow citizens better? Are you here to enrich your business community? Are you here because you provide a service that others would not be able to provide if it were not for you? What is it that makes your business unique and special? I hear this sometimes when I will hear business leaders that will tell me, well, you know, it's the business that I happen to get into and it works for me. Well, it works for you because you care about it, you're passionate, you think that you're doing a service to your family, to your community. Whatever it is the reason, you need to be explicit. Because people want to come to work knowing that they've made a difference. No matter how small the difference is in your mind, people want to know that they've made a difference. Especially at times of turbulence, when, for example, the fact that your business stays open during the pandemic is the reason why people are able to eat, people are able to buy essential goods. Whatever it may be the reason, being clear on why we're here helps people recognize that they are playing a role in the success of something that is much larger than them. And we all want to have that feeling of connection to something that it's meaningful and that makes us feel better about ourselves. So step one is, why are we here? If you're not clear on the why we're here, two things can normally step in. One, people will look for motivation outside of your workplace and potentially change jobs, find essentially another career that makes them feel better about themselves. And two, if they're not clear, they're going to make their own assumptions as to why we're here. And you can trust me, when things get complicated, like during a turbulence, the assumptions that they're going to make are not necessarily positive assumptions. They're going to start thinking, well, I'm here just because I need a job, or I'm here because I want to navigate through this turbulence, or I don't know why I'm here, and my boss doesn't know either. He's not a great boss, so I better find myself something else. There are plenty of issues around trust and connection to something that is bigger than us that are become unresolved if we're not clear on why we're here. Step two, what are we here to do? People want to know at a macro level, what are the key things that they're here to do? Whether they accomplish all of it, whether they are responsible for all of them in their entirety, they want to know what are the specific steps that we're taking to respond to the why we're here. So if, for example, our business is providing groceries to the local community and explaining the why we're here as we're an essential part of the community. We make the lives of people easier because we're here, and we are fulfilling a much greater job of making people, families come together at dinner, at lunchtime, wherever it may be. when we then move on to what we're here to do, and we list all of the major tasks that we're doing, all of the big activities that we are here to do, we're providing people with some direction, not only on what we are here to do, but also what we are not going to be doing. Being clear on what the major strands of activity are across all levels of the organization. I don't care if you're just telling it to your VP or to your direct reports. That's not enough. Everyone inside the organization, even the person that is in charge of sweeping the floors, everyone needs to know what are the key things that we do. Because anytime that you're providing clarity on what the major activities are, you're letting people understand how they fit into the bigger piece, how the job that they're currently doing helps to accomplish those key activities. You may imagine that if we don't do step 2, if we don't tell people what we're here to do, again, they're going to make assumptions, they're going to guess it, and they're going to do the activities that they think are relevant. So everyone needs to understand what are the key components of the work that we're doing. And as we move on to step 3, we need to be thinking how we will do this. What are the best ways of doing what those major activities are? Which is not just related to things like, the values. There are different ways to do things. And so if we're providing groceries to the local community, we can do that with a smile, or we can choose not to smile. So being clear on how we do it, it's just as important. And helping people understand what role and responsibility they specifically have. So not just what the major activities are, but specifically what each one of your team members will be asked to do. You can describe this as a job description. You can describe it as a series of tasks. Being clear on what is that they are actually going to be doing provides them with clarity on what the scope of responsibility that they have is. I have encountered many leaders that tell me, but Joe, if I do that, I am restricting things. And what if I need to add other things? Well, that goes without saying. That can happen. But the more you are clear on what your expectations are of others, the easier it is for them to know how they will impact your team positively. What happens if we don't tell them specifically what to do? We're going back to the point around the delivery of service with a smile or without a smile. They may choose for them to offer their services with their smile, but they may also think that it's not important, that it's more important for them to just get through the day because it's been a hard day. And so it's your responsibility to make sure that they feel that they are connecting again with step 1, step 2, and now step 3, so that they know not only why we're here to provide an essential service to our community. Not only we're telling them, and these are the key activities that we're going to be doing, but we're also telling them, and here is how we're going to be doing it. We're going to be doing it with a smile. And in your case, Mark, Wendy, John, Linda, whatever it may be the individual's responsibility, we help them see how they themselves can perform it. I'm going to stop there before I move on to the next part, which is the who does what when, and see if there are any questions so far. Minute. Give you time to write in the chat. And if you don't have any questions, feel free to just type no questions and I'll move on. All right, thank you, Fabiola. Thank you, Brigitte, and thank you, Faith. So if we're clear on how we're going to map our responsibilities, I think we need to be even clearer on how we make sure that everyone performs their job. So the next step in the model is the who does what when. This is the part where I find most leaders get really focused on and hung up on, where they essentially say, well, you're going to show up from 8 to 5, and here is the specific task that I want you to do. And that's all well and good. As I was mentioning earlier, without the previous input on why we're here and the major activities, as well as the kind of giving clarity to people of what specific their responsibilities are, and what is the best way, sort of the value system on how we're going to provide services. We can't be effective in step 4. In step 4, we need to get more specific about turning big goals that we have for our teams into day-to-day activities. Each milestone we take towards a certain goal needs to be fleshed out. Conflict and confusion at this level arise anytime that roles are assigned, but no clear way forward has been defined. So what that means is you're telling someone, well, you're going to be in charge of making coffees in the morning, but you don't tell them how it's done, what are the times when it needs to be done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So step 4 is the 5 W steps. You can remember it through the 5 Ws: who, what, where, when, and why. So essentially what we're saying is who will do a certain task, what will specifically need to be done, where it will be done, when it will be done, and why is the work being done in this sequence. Again, what I find is that when we're trying to be effective with our teams, if we don't give them visibility as to why things are done in a certain way, it creates confusion and it allows them to make assumptions around what's needed and how they're going to be performing that specific task. So just like before, providing some context as to the why makes people feel more compelled to do the work the right way. I'll give you an example. Let's imagine that you work in a dealership and you have a front of the house person that welcomes people when they come into the dealership. You could tell your person, you need to be here between 8 and 5 to greet everyone. It's your responsibility to greet them. But I am sure that you have witnessed different levels of performance around why some people make you feel really welcome and why some people don't. And I'm sure that if you break it down to why that happens is that those that make you feel really welcome understand that the dealership, for example, provides an essential service to the local community in that it provides modes of transportation to the community and therefore plays a big role in making sure that the community is mobile. But also, if this person does their job right, they will know why, for example, it's essential when they greet you in the morning to tell you specifically, hello, how can I be supportive? What is that you need? Have you been given a cup of coffee? Whatever it may be that you think is essential for that specific task to be performed. Which leads on to step 5. So if we go on to step 5, we are essentially saying, I get that I need to do all this work. What happens next? Well, what happens next in any high impact teams is time for reflection. Once we've gotten step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 right, once we're clear that our people are making their best effort, that they know what's essential for the business to be successful, step 5 is the step of reflection. It's the step in which we take a step back and we say, well, we did all these things right. What could we done better? And how can we implement that onto the next iteration of our work assignments? What do we tweak? What can we do to make our people feel even more in alignment with the reason why they're here, with the purpose of the business? Step 5 is, I call it the growth mindset step, in which you don't just accept and be happy with how things are going, but you're always looking for ways to do things better. At this step, you should be asking yourself some very simple questions. Number 1, did we accomplish our intended results? Was there something that was not accomplished? Did we hit all the goals that we wanted to have in step 3 and in step 4? If not, if we didn't, what was the cause? Is that something that was related to the way in which you motivated your teams? Is it because the environment is changing? And if it's changing, what do we need to change? And the other question that you should be asking yourself is, how will we sustain or improve? Step 5 is not just a step in which you tell people we can do better, and here are all the different reasons how we could do better. But it's also a time to congratulate your team and tell them, well done for the job that we've accomplished. Thank you for making this through. I'm glad that you see that you're motivated to do all these things. Let's find a way of getting even better. So step 5, it's about taking stock, reflecting on what you could be doing differently, and also taking time to congratulate your team. With that, I'm going to stop and see if there are any major questions that you may have, or any reflections, or maybe even observations that I can help address in the context of what we shared, so high impact teams. And I want to thank you for taking the time to be with me and to listen to what I have to share.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. Attendees, please post your questions in the Q&A. We got some time that we can leverage Joe's expertise and ask him some questions that may help you and your teams in managing those teams as you look to the holiday season and the next year. So we'll give a moment to let them post in the chat. So Joe, what are some of the challenges that you normally see in businesses that you talk to during the holidays in particular in managing the teams?
So I think that some of the issues are connected to the availability of the teams to focus on their own personal lives, especially at this point in time, their own personal lives and the lives of those that they work with. It's always a little bit complicated. You have family to worry about. You're worrying about how you're going to make it to the end of the year. There are all these different dimensions that I think it's easy to forget, because we all get wrapped up in our own personal lives and focus. And especially in the last couple of years, what I have seen is the kind of the disconnect between what we think is necessary to bring the team together and make the team bond versus how people feel about it. I've seen a lot of companies, for example, kind of being disappointed that they cannot celebrate with their colleagues. Or you've seen others that instead feel that celebrating at this particular point in time, especially if they've had losses in their family, seems to be contrite. So getting into and understanding the mood amongst your employees is a critical requirement for any manager. Where are they at? How do they feel about things? And I think that especially for those that are more on the introverted side of the spectrum, as I am, it's hard to get into conversations that feel personal. But people spend so much of their time at work that there is, in my opinion, an expectation that we should have that we hear them out, that we get them to share how they feel.
Excellent, thank you. We have a question from Jamie. It says, sustainability is a critical piece to the planning process internally and externally. How is this threaded into the 5 Ws?
That's a great question, Jamie. For me, sustainability is actually inserted at the very beginning of the whole process of why are we here. If we do it at the very outset of describing why are we here, and we're clear on the impact that we have on our community, and you can look at sustainability both from the perspective of the environment, but also of how we impact communities and society, how we essentially manage our business overall. I think that needs to be incorporated into the why are we here in the first place. So again, if you're a small business, your sustainability may be driven by factors like how much energy I consume, how I support the local homeless population, whatever it may be that pertains to your business. That for me needs to be incorporated into the why. Because if you incorporate it into the why of your business, then a natural set of goals will emerge to meet that that specific vision that you have of how sustainable your business is going to be. Which in turn, if you have goals, you know what happens, right? You need to accomplish those goals and you need to take actions, which in turn will translate into the 5 Ws. So for example, if your business is especially concerned about the unemployed homeless population, and you see that as a requirement, then into the 5 Ws, you will probably have either recruitment activities or training program for the local homeless population, whatever it may be that helps you advance those sustainable goals that you created in the first place.
Excellent, thank you. We have another good question from Fabiola. It says, do you recommend inter-office celebrations outside of the office, not necessarily team building exercise, but more of a no strings attached bowling night or trip to Vegas? Or
that's a great question, and I cannot comment specifically on Vegas. That is a decision that you and your team will need to make. If you're looking for me to tell your boss to go to Vegas, I'm not going to do that. Only kidding, of course. But it's a great question, Fabiola. I think that at this particular point in time, we really need to get into the mood of what good celebration looks like and what is a good way to end what has been a difficult year. And in fact, we're almost approaching 2 years now of this pandemic. So it may not be a team building exercise, but involve your team in the decision. I know of companies that reached out to their employees and said, look, you're all in different places and you may all want to do different things. What is that you want to do? Do you want to get together with your small teams, the teams that you work with specifically, or would you want the organization to try and organize something for all of you? You'll find that you're going to get a mixed bag. Some people will want a big celebration, some people will not. And so it's your job to figure out where your business is at that point in time and whether a big celebration is really appropriate at that particular point in time or whether not. But one thing that you cannot do is not to engage at all. You need to have those conversations. You need to be talking to your colleagues. You need to see how they're closing this year. How do they feel about it? You need to get them to focus on what's been good about this past year, because there's been plenty of good things that have emerged out of this. For some, it may have meant connecting more with their families. For others, it may have meant being able to still retain their job. Whatever it may be, make sure that you spend time to get those conversations out so that people can do a proper reflection on what's been accomplished.
Excellent. And then to wrap up, we're going to wrap up with one last question here. And it's Faith asks us, says, what are some additional books and resources that can assist us better to develop our high impact leadership skill set?
Oh, there's all kinds of materials here. There is one place that I recommend all of you, if you don't already do it, is to go to the Harvard Business Review website. There's plenty of short articles. I'm going to teach you a trick. So you get 3 articles a month that you can browse at no cost. But if you go into incognito mode, there's 3 more that you can access that way. So you can get a total of 6 articles a month that you can access and look at. And you're going to find a ton of resources on high impact teams. One model that I also suggest is the direct to recipient model. It's a model that explains how to manage teams into a little bit more detail. I am happy to also send a list to Robert of things that I recommend that you guys should look at. And if you still are hungry for more, you can see my email address at the bottom of the slide. Feel free to reach out. I'll be more than happy to help you find additional resources.
Excellent, thank you. And yeah, Joe, send me that list and then we'll post it with the materials for this boot camp session so people can see that. But we want to thank you, Joe, for today. We're going to give everybody a few minutes back to their day and let you get going to other stuff. But again, great presentation, Joe. Great information. We appreciate you coming on with us again. And for all those that attended, please share this with your friends, have them come back and watch the recording. And we hope to also remind you about Thursday's session. We hope to see you Thursday morning at 9 a.m. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap up and let everybody get about their business the rest of the day. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you all.